Happy Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. It is Thursday, so that means it's a day that we do look out for each and every week, especially as of lately, really the last 2 months in Central Georgia, because we get a new update to our drought monitor. So we're going to start off covering that and what it entails. And could we have some relief in store in terms of maybe some rain from Mother Nature to alleviate some of the dry conditions, or at least put them at a halt, at least in terms of it continuing to expand. But overall, the month of October has continued to be a very dry month. The last time we recorded rain was on October 19th, so that was going into maybe about 5 days ago. I believe that was at the end of the weekend when our frontal boundary came through and sent us some pretty widespread rain, but it was relatively light rain in nature. We only totaled just over 1/10 of an inch of rain here at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. So your total for the month of October, just above a ½ inch of rainfall that we've recorded. That's been over the course of only 3 days. So obviously that's not terrible. Many days that we saw rain in the month of September only recorded maybe about a couple hundredths of an inch. So at least we've gotten a couple tenths of an inch of rain, but compared to average, we are still well below that number of 2.34 inches, which we normally see on average in the month of October all time. Your record of 9 inches in just over a quarter of an inch, 9.39 inches, still looks like it is going to be a distant memory. We are not going to get anywhere near that number whatsoever. That's typically when you have a pretty active tropic season in the month of October that I imagine a lot of that rainfall is contributed to. So here's your latest drought monitor update, and you will notice the main change: no more yellow shades over Central Georgia, no more abnormally dry areas, which we've been continuing to tell you that that's not really anything to fret about, anything to worry about. But we have seen a moderate drought expanded for all of Central Georgia now, and along with that, we see areas of a severe drought, I was looking at the wrong box over there, a severe drought creeping over into our western counties. I do believe these are the same areas that were under a moderate drought as of the last update. But within that area of a severe drought, you can see an extreme drought popping up just to the northwest of us here in Central Georgia. That's going to be areas like Pike County, Spalding County, getting up maybe into portions of Fayette County and Henry County. And we also see other areas of a severe drought creeping over into portions of Johnson County, the northern half of Emmanuel County, and really close to Lake Blackshear in the southwest corner of Chris County. So very thankfully, most of Central Georgia isn't necessarily as bad as severe or extreme drought conditions, but a moderate drought is not something you need to take lightly. Remember those tips and tricks that we have been advising you to take. If under a moderate drought, definitely want to make sure that you're watering your lawn, watering your plants, maybe your backyard garden, sometime in the early morning hours or in the late evening hours. So you're limiting those hours of evaporation, and that soil is able to hold on to that water just a little bit longer. And a good tip that you can utilize: water your plants and then throw some mulch over them. That mulch is going to kind of act as a blocking mechanism for that moisture to evaporate back out, and it's going to trap the moisture in the soil just a little bit longer to keep those plants hydrated for a bit longer. And along with that, we are seeing many stream and river levels go down. So obviously we're going to need some natural hydration from Mother Nature, which does look to be in store and actually looks pretty promising for things like river water levels, especially given that if we have rain to the north of us, that's going to flow downstream into the Ocmulgee, the Oconee, and over in the Flint rivers here. But other than that, just make sure that you are continuing to heed the guidelines from the National Weather Service or any outlooks or tips or tricks or guidelines that the drought monitor does issue out there. And we continue to see some of those issued, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But right now, your main headline for the next 3 days, your short-term forecast, is textbook fall weather. Chilly mornings and great afternoons. Now we're getting a peek into the weekend, and Saturday is looking dry, but rain chances are back as we go into the last day of your weekend on Sunday. We'll talk about what time we're expecting that rain to move in. First things first, let's take a walk around the quad in Central Georgia, where downtown Macon, yes, it's crystal clear, that deep blue color in the sky as we look off to the northeast. But you can see we actually have some clouds for a change. This is mainly just some upper level clouds, some of those higher level and thinner cirrus clouds that aren't blocking any of your sunshine. It still looks like sunny skies all around Warner Robins off Cohen Walker Drive and down at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. But take a look at these grassy areas over there in Houston County. This grass is very brown in color, looks very dehydrated. Only areas of downtown Dublin actually have a bit of a hint of green in that grass, and that's because many of the sprinklers are going in the early morning hours and into the evening hours here in the downtown Dublin Square. But we don't really have anything in the way of rain chances for your short-term forecasts because of our dry atmosphere we continue to have. Here's a look at your temperatures right now. Low 60s, some mid 60s, and some upper 60s. I believe 67 degrees is the warmest number that we can spot. But our temperatures got down into the 40s, even a couple areas that went down into the 30s. I'm looking at you, Eastman, Dublin, and McRae down in our southeast. So it's very good to already see a warm up of about 20 degrees so far this morning, and we'll continue that as we head into the afternoon. 67 degrees, the temperature over in Charleston, actually a little bit cooler back over into Montgomery and areas of central Alabama. 69 and 68 degrees in Panama City and Jacksonville, and the farther down to the south in the Florida Peninsula you go, 78 degrees down in Orlando, 76 in New Orleans, 79 in Houston, and then topping it off with an 82 down in Laredo. So the second day in a row that Laredo has claimed that highest temperature here in the east and southeast United States, continuing to see areas of widespread blue farther up to the north. That's going to be closer to where a lot of low pressure systems have been moving through. So increased cloud cover, some of that rain cooled air, and just generally in this time of year, the closer up to the North Pole that you get, your temperatures are going to be a bit cooler as the Earth's axis begins to be tilted farther and farther away from the sun during the season of fall and eventually into the winter season. But it does look like widespread 60s across many of our neighboring cities and many of our neighboring states. And your dew point temperatures, that is the tell-all with your forecast. A very dry environment. Dew point temperatures not only just in the upper 30s, how about the mid 30s over here in eastern counties? Don't think I spot anything below a 34-degree dew point. But we have one lone 40 up here in Macon, maybe a slightly more humid environment. But overall, there's little to no humidity in your forecast. So a very dry environment, and that's going to continue to be the case over the next couple of days. And there are barely any areas of light green in the near vicinity of us. We see some back over here kind of into southwest central Alabama, just to the south of Birmingham, to the west of Montgomery. That's the only area of color I can spot unless you go down to Louisiana right there, just to the southwest of the coastal areas of Mississippi, and then just south of Jacksonville, you can spot a very faint hint of that light green color. There's not a lot of moisture in the air down here in the southeast United States, so we're going to continue to have almost entirely crystal clear skies with the exception of some of that high level cloud cover on occasion like we just got a glimpse of. Your winds and your wind gusts, they are a bit breezier the farther south that you travel. Sustained winds up to 10 miles per hour in areas like Cochrane and Americus, 12-mile-per-hour breeze down in Vidalia. We'll continue to see this breeze be a factor in some areas as we head into the afternoon, but overall it's not going to be necessarily as windy of a day as say what we did see yesterday. Talking about some numbers now, 43 degrees for a morning low in Macon yesterday. Not quite as cool as say 39 and 38 degrees, which were our morning lows on Monday and Tuesday mornings respectively. But 43 is still 8 degrees below average of 51 degrees, where our morning low temperatures should sit around this time of year. And your afternoon high temperatures, they got a little bit warmer than we were forecasting, about 2 degrees above average, somewhere right on the cusp of the 80-degree mark. But that still felt like a great atmosphere when you're not talking about anything in the way of humidity to make that 79-degree mark maybe feel like the 80s. 89 was in fact our record yesterday back in the 1930s, 1939, and in 1987 we saw a record low of 33 degrees, which some areas have been very close to flirting with over recent days. We actually saw a 35 pop up in Dublin once again this morning, a 36 down in Eastman. Thankfully, we haven't seen any areas get close to the freezing temperature mark just yet. So your year departure of rain right there around 2.5 inches above where we should be. That number continues to get a steady downtick day by day. And sunrise and sunset, yesterday it was at 7:44 when the sun rose. Sunset was at 6:53, so 7 minutes before 7 p.m. yesterday evening. And I can attest that evening time frame it feels incredible outside. I had outside dinner last night with some family, and it was absolutely incredible. Just put on a bit of a light pullover and wore some shorts, and I was not chilly whatsoever. So continue to enjoy those very pleasant feeling fall evenings that we will have in store. So hour by hour, your temperatures should rise up into the upper 70s once again. I wouldn't doubt that maybe 79 or 80 pops up in a few areas, but that continues to be paired up with that very dry air we were just talking about. It looks like as we go into 1 p.m., we'll finally see the numbers climb above the 70-degree mark, and then as you get closer and closer to sunset, right at the 6 p.m. hour, down to 76 degrees, and we'll continue to start to get numbers to drop down into the upper 60s around 7 and 8 o'clock as maybe you're winding down for your dinner plans. So for today, I went with a high temperature of 78 degrees. All you need to know is these are around average high temperatures, maybe slightly above, maybe some areas that don't quite make it to the 77-degree mark. But everyone's going to have plenty of sunshine, and it's going to be a fantastic afternoon for any afternoon or evening plans that you may have in terms of a cookout, maybe trying to go out to a fall festival or get your Halloween spirit on, as we're now only about 8 days away from Halloween next Friday. And a bit of a northwesterly breeze. You could maybe occasionally see a gust up to 15 miles per hour, but overall not as breezy as what we were talking about yesterday. But I did mention how dry we are with the latest drought monitor update, and we've been talking about these for the last couple of days. We had our first fire danger statement of the season issued yesterday. Well, the National Weather Service has gone ahead and issued yet another one. This is going to go until 8 p.m. later on this evening. And this goes for all of central Georgia and many areas of West Georgia, Northeast Georgia, and of course going back up into the Carolinas, closer to the Appalachian Mountains. Northwestern Georgia doesn't quite see that fire danger statement, so some of their criteria just isn't necessarily going to meet what we have down here a little bit farther to the south in terms of the ingredients for these fire danger statements. So what we need is low relative humidity. Our relative humidity today should be around 15 to 25%. And obviously don't get too caught up in the percentages of that. Just know it's a very dry environment. And along with that, the latest update of the drought monitor continues to tell us, yes, it is very dry in terms of the ground, in terms of the soil, and that can lead to your fair share of dry vegetation. The less moisture you have at the ground, at the surface, amongst plants, it is going to result in a lot more fuel to the fire if you are to have, say, some controlled burns and obviously some dry leaves, some dry brush, some pine straw. All of that is going to be a proper ingredient for allowing fires to spread a lot quicker. And we have those winds. They aren't too gusty today, northwest winds of 5 to 10 miles per hour, but that still is a breeze that could blow a controlled burn, maybe say out of your control over the course of today. And this goes until 8 p.m. tonight, but once again, these fire danger statements basically just mean that outdoor burning is going to be strongly discouraged. Make sure that you're utilizing the proper precautions and you really know what you're doing when it comes to participating in some of these controlled burns all throughout today. And we very likely could see an extension of these in the next couple of days until we finally get some more moisture and some more water in our atmosphere, which does look to be in the near vicinity. Satellite and radar shows that higher level cloud cover we got a glimpse of down in Warner Robins as we were looking over to the west. This is going to continue to be a factor on occasion throughout today. Overall, I still think your forecast is going to be dictated by sunshine because this cloud cover isn't doing a very good job of blocking that sunlight. Now we take a big picture view all across the southeast. At least we see higher level cloud cover spanning back over to the west. So there is a bit more moisture at the higher levels of the atmosphere, but definitely not necessarily at the surface. Still a very uneventful forecast if we're having to talk about what kind of clouds that you are seeing throughout the day. So as we transition into the evening, it does look like maybe that higher level cloud cover gets out of the picture. Still a bit of a steady breeze, as you can see with these wind arrows going into Friday at 6 p.m. So this is going to be right before the start of many football games. It looks like a clear atmosphere. Once again, a bit of a steady breeze. Temperatures are going to begin their cool down. Football Friday night, you're going to want to layer up, maybe wearing something in the form of sweatpants, maybe even some form of a light jacket or even a hoodie as you head out into the gridiron, because temperatures will cool pretty quickly that we've seen over the last couple of days. Now let's flash forward all the way into Saturday. And Saturday, I've thrown a few pause points on there. It still looks like most of the morning going to be predominantly clear. The breeze is actually going to be a bit more prominent coming out of the east and the northeast as we head into Saturday afternoon. And then once we transition into Saturday evening, here comes cloud cover from the west. And this is going to be some denser cloud cover that if we had the sunshine kind of available around this time, 6 p.m., we're going to get closer and closer to sunset, but it probably is going to block the sunset a little bit because this cloud covers over to the west and the sun will be setting in the west. So maybe giving you a bit of a cool image with that sunset as you wrap up your Saturday plans. And then as we go into the nighttime hours and overnight into early on Sunday morning, we are going to keep the cloud cover in the forecast. So when you have cloud cover overnight, it is going to result in some warmer temperatures, and you will see that once we go into the morning lows graphic in just a little bit as well. But for the next 3 days, nothing interrupting your outdoor plans. Like I said, fall festivals, haunted houses, pumpkin patches, football Friday night, everything, you are going to be good to go. Just remember that these temperatures are your high temperatures that we hit around 3, 4, and 5 o'clock each day. If you have plans, say around 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock over the next 3 days, you are going to want to bundle up a little bit because temperatures will be getting cool, but they will feel pleasant for maybe about an hour or two just past sunset. 77 for a high temperature on Friday, down to 75 as we go into Saturday. But notice your morning low temperatures, not quite as chilly as what we saw this morning. 43 for a morning low on Friday and 44 for a morning low on Saturday. So your morning low temperatures continuing to steadily get warmer day by day, and your afternoon high temperatures are actually going to continue to steadily decrease and cool down day by day. That will be a common theme as we head all the way into the beginning of next week. But let's talk about the humidity because we need an uptick in the moisture content before we finally see some more impressive rain chances. Well, we go through Thursday and through Friday with a very dry atmosphere and still continuing with the dry atmosphere as we roll into Saturday afternoon, but starting to see some of that light green creep farther up to the north. And then we will start to see areas of widespread light green, even some dark green over to the west. And that's all going to be courtesy of our next approaching rainmaker as we head into the later hours on Sunday. In terms of the breeze throughout this afternoon, it does look like it's a little bit breezier up to the north of us, maybe down to the south of us, but we could still have an occasional wind up to around 10 miles per hour. Throughout your Friday, not much in the way of winds. Once again, a very similar feeling day in terms of the breeze as we go into tomorrow afternoon, but going Friday night into early Saturday morning and as we go into lunchtime on Saturday, right as college game day is wrapping up, it is going to be a pretty breezy afternoon. Gusts up to 20 miles per hour possible. Even the potential for some winds up to 25 miles per hour possible as we go into Saturday evening and more so the nighttime hours. And it does look like our fair share of gustier winds are going to be present over to the west, and that will continue to be the case as we roll into Sunday. So now let's go into your morning low temperatures. Remember, I talked about the cloud cover sticking around Saturday night into Sunday morning. Well, if that is the case, and that does look to be the case, your morning low temperature is bouncing back closer to average for this time of year, as opposed to about 6 or 7 degrees below average around Friday and Saturday. So Sunday going to walk out the door to maybe some more pleasant feeling weather. Don't get me wrong, it's still going to be chilly, 49 degrees for a morning low, then up to 53 as we head into Monday. You're also going to have a bit of an uptick in the moisture content, so that will allow for a bit of a warmer feel as you make your way outside. But your afternoon high temperatures are going to do the opposite. Morning lows will be steadily increasing. Afternoon high temperatures are going to begin to steadily decrease. 70 degrees for a high temperature on Sunday and 67 degrees for a high temperature on Monday afternoon. That's what happens when you have cloud cover present for a long period of time. So you don't get as many peaks of sunshine. You are going to have some warmer morning low temperatures because the cloud cover is trapping any of that radiation that you received the day before at the surface, and it's reflecting off the bottom of those clouds during the overnight hours when typically on a crystal clear night, it would go back out up into the atmosphere without having anything blocking it. But your afternoon high temperatures, in turn, you're not going to see as much of a warm up because not a lot of sunshine is going to break through that cloud cover. It's going to reflect off the top of it and go back out into the upper levels of the atmosphere as opposed to going down to the surface and warming it up. So 67 degrees for a high temperature on Monday afternoon. That is 10 degrees below average for this time of year. So I'm going to do a bit of a flip-flop. Your morning lows have been the ones that have been well below average as of recently. Well, as we head into next week, morning lows will be back there around average or even above average, but your afternoon high temperatures are going to be well below average, somewhere in the upper 60s Monday, and I'll go ahead and give you a bit of a teaser into Tuesday and into Wednesday. In terms of the muggy meter, not going to have any rain chances for the next 3 days because the humidity is going to be at very low levels. But as we see that rebound in moisture into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, that's when your rain chances start to increase. But there are good signs. Take a look at this. Tuesday into Wednesday, we start to see even drier air ushering into the forecast, and that's going to set the stage for what is going to be a chilly and what is going to be a dry Halloween forecast is what it's looking like right now. So here's what the long-range models have to say about your rain chances. Continuing to see a lot of good model agreement amongst the GFS and the Euro on maybe even some severe weather into portions of Louisiana and southern Mississippi as we roll into Sunday morning. But what time will that rain make an appearance here in central Georgia? It still looks like the first half of your Sunday is going to be predominantly clear. I wouldn't rule out maybe a few spotty showers throughout the morning and early afternoon hours on Sunday, but I think the widespread rain chances start to enter as we go into your Sunday evening and Sunday nighttime. So right now, the GFS is kind of breaking the rain chances apart. We're starting to see more shades of that blue according to the European model. And as we go overnight Sunday into early Monday morning, that's when your widespread rain chances will be continuing to fall. So that's going to be a good case in terms of the timing because number one, you're already going to be wrapping up your weekend plans, settling down for the night. You'll already be inside. Hopefully this rain won't be impacting you besides maybe on your morning commute on Monday morning. But this is if the rain is this widespread according to the European model. The GFS has this rain breaking apart. Higher rainfall totals to the north of us, higher rainfall totals down to the southwest of us. So we're going to need a little bit better model agreement. At least they're agreeing on the timing later Sunday into most of the first half of your Monday. Let's go ahead and take it to 10 a.m. where the GFS thinks that widespread rain will begin to hang around in the picture for not only the morning commute time, but probably well into the afternoon. And the European is trying to say these rain chances are going to get out of here, going to move over to the east. And this is all associated with a center of low pressure, a low pressure system that I was telling you about. They're normally present farther to the north this time of year, but this one is moving a little bit farther down to the south. So the closer to that center of low pressure we are, the greater your rain chances and the greater your moisture content is going to be. And then rain chances finally start to move out of the picture as we go into late Monday afternoon into the evening hours, but the cloud cover does stick around all the way until Tuesday morning. So if we keep that cloud cover present, that's going to result in those warmer morning lows and those cooler afternoon high temperatures. But rain chances really start to taper off after we get through Tuesday. Maybe just a few spotty showers, some light sprinkles on the western side of this center of low pressure. So you'll have that counterclockwise rotation. And like I said, close to the center of it, you'll have better rain chances. But typically on the backside of these systems, we do just typically see maybe a little bit of moisture trying to wrap back around into the picture on the west and the northwestern side of that center of low pressure. So I don't think the rain chances are going to be as widespread and as heavy on the backside as we go into Tuesday, but still holding on to a bit of a rain chance, not only Tuesday, but also into Wednesday. Now, as we go into Wednesday, it finally looks like we start to see some clearing in the cloud cover, but there is still plenty of rain up to the north and northeast of us. Who's to say that the next model run as we go about a week out into the future couldn't put some of these rain chances down a little bit farther to the south. But after we go through Wednesday, remember that downtick in humidity, I do believe a frontal boundary is going to sweep through. And this is kind of a good indication of the frontal boundary well off in the Atlantic Ocean. And then finally, we are going to start to see some cooler and drier air as we head into Thursday and Friday. And Friday, of course, being the most important day because it will be Halloween. So now taking a look at the rainfall graphics, and take these with a grain of salt. This is just a rough guesstimate right now. I like to put a pause point about what time you do start to see these shades of green at least popping up. And right now, going along with our plan, sometime in the late afternoon to evening hours on Sunday, we start to see the rain popping up according to the GFS model. And remember, it was kind of splitting the rain chances according to those green shades on the long range models. Higher totals are going to be found up to the north. That's where you see more of this kind of blue gray color and eventually getting into a bit of a dark purple gray color right here, so 1 to 2 inches of rain. Those totals should be found farther up to the north according to this model. But down here in central Georgia, we don't really luck out with much, maybe only about 1/4 of an inch of rain. But the counterpart of the GFS, the European model, number 1, has the rain popping up a little bit earlier. So remember I said the first part of Sunday, it is going to be a gloomy atmosphere, but we're also going to have your fair share of some spotty shower chances. Now these aren't going to be very significant in the way of rainfall, but if we go this route, you may still want to bring your umbrella and rain jacket out for that morning commute into church. And then we flash forward all the way into the end of the midweek next week. Take a look at this. Better resolution number 1, where we can see widespread totals of at least an inch in central Georgia. So we're not seeing any shaded areas of that light green color, which are going to indicate maybe just some totals of only a couple tenths of an inch. It looks like 1 inch is the minimum, and we could also see some totals up to close to 2 inches or even above 2 inches like in Vidalia. And as we get into this kind of maroon and red color, we do see the shaded areas of those. So localized areas of possibly 3 inches of rain could be possible in central Georgia. I don't think 1 inch is going to be enough to necessarily get rid of the moderate drought that we do see that is very widespread, but it's at least going to put a stop to it expanding or worsening over the area. So this would be a good thing, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can get even higher rainfall totals out of this. If we were to get, say, around 2 or 3 inches of rain, that could be very widespread. That would do a good job of maybe even bringing some of those drought conditions back into the abnormally dry category. But overall, we would need a couple systems to bring us rainfall totals like this in order to completely get us out of those abnormally dry or even moderate to even severe drought conditions. So Tropical Storm Melissa, let's go ahead and check in on the tropics now. As of the 11 a.m. update this Thursday morning, winds down to 45 miles per hour. So the winds have been around 50 miles per hour over the last 2 days. Your pressure is actually increased, and it's moving to the north-northwest at a very slow 2 miles per hour. We'll take a look at the cone path right now. Obviously, the cone continues to just really be a big circle, indicating high uncertainty in the potential path of Melissa. But overall, the consensus is Melissa is going to continue to make this northern turn over the next couple of days and still remain a tropical storm. Friday at 8 a.m., maybe getting an increase of winds up to 60 miles per hour. But as we head into the weekend, sometime Saturday into Sunday, we should see Melissa eventually strengthen into a Category 1 hurricane. And by Sunday morning, maybe even a Category 2 storm or a Category 3, a major hurricane. And the latest 2 updates and the latest 2 timestamps have a Category 4 storm associated with Melissa by the time we roll into Tuesday at 7 a.m. with 130 mile per hour winds. But it hasn't moved too much, maybe only about 100 miles in between now and about 5 days into the future. As it moves closer and closer up to the north, it will start to take more of a western turn over towards Jamaica, and Jamaica is probably going to feel the full force of some hurricane force impacts. But right now, we are continuing to keep a close eye on maybe a potential swing back out into the Atlantic Ocean, which a lot of these models on the GFS spaghetti plot seem to hint at, crossing over maybe over Jamaica, over eastern Cuba, over portions of Hispaniola, or maybe going directly to the west on the cusp of Honduras and Nicaragua here in Central America, and taking a turn back up to the north, crossing over Cuba, the Bahamas, impacting areas of southern Florida, Miami, getting into the Florida Keys. But all of these models continue to say that Melissa should go back out into the Atlantic Ocean and eventually be a fish storm after impacting a whole lot of areas down in the Caribbean. Now let's see what the European says, and there seems to be pretty good agreement on a general westerly path over the next couple of days. But then a lot of model runs still stick Melissa back out into the Atlantic Ocean. But some of these plots and some of these model runs, they do get a little bit too close for comfort on the eastern coast of the United States. So once again, you've heard me say it over the last couple of days, cannot rule out any U.S. impacts as of right now, but we'll continue to keep you posted. U.S. impacts aren't looking very likely. We're not going to buy stock in what one individual model run of this entire ensemble of model runs does say, but it is something that warrants keeping an eye on as it does continue to meander down there in the Caribbean. And in terms of watches and warnings, we do now see a tropical storm warning for areas of Jamaica and a hurricane watch down in southern Haiti right